What's up, A to Z Sports Live on a Friday. Gonna have a great show to send everybody to the weekend that is the final preseason weekend across the NFL. And it really is this tomorrow real games start in college football. So we are here. We have arrived. Football season has officially become here. So we're gonna talk about that and do a final 53-man roster cut prediction before the Saints game. So Sam was able to put together his official 53-man roster. We'll have that article up on A2Zsports.com a little later after the show. But this is the official prediction. So the hay's in the barn, right? So there's one preseason game left, but you're saying this is my prediction on the 53-man roster. Maybe one day I'll ask. I'll ask you some of the reasoning after we do the official open here. But we're gonna go position by position. Sam's predictions on the 53. We're gonna go like March. I guess I can't say that word or we'll get sued. NCAA tournament bracket selection style is what we're gonna be doing.
Selection
show, right? Selection show style. We'll go to who's the East region, the quarterbacks. So we're gonna have fun with this. All 10 positions here on the show before we get to Ain't That Good News to wrap up our week. Sam, let's get it going here.
Hey, let's do it. I'm pumped for this. I'm ready to go here. I'm definitely like hosting one of these shows on, CBS or whatever, and it's the selection show for the Titans roster in 2024. Position by position, who's making the team? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to lay it all out there, and we've got a little competition going in the Titans media pool. I think I might go 53 for 53. I might be perfect across the board here.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'm letting y'all know now that this is where I'm coming. And then we'll have the conversations, right? Where I'm right, where I'm wrong, what I need to fix. And it'll be a great, great show this morning. So don't go anywhere. And as a matter of fact, get somebody else in here. Share the show. If you're watching on Facebook, hit the share button. If you're watching on YouTube, take the YouTube link. This is as good of a show as any to bomb into the Titans group chat and be like, hey, we got a roster prediction reveal show going on here. This is a good one to interact with. It's a good one to tune into. Share the show before we go here on a Friday morning.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcome to A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Sam Phelan, our Titans reporter for A2Zsports.com. And we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Also hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. Got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Go see them in Lebanon or wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care, and Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans and use our link to get a quote, fbhp.com/ATOZ. So
I want to thank everybody want to thank everybody in the chat before we get going on. Just congratulating me and complimenting me on my haircut.
I was going to get to that.
Really appreciate it, guys. Got the beard trim, got the haircut. I know I'm looking a little fresh. So, I would tell you guys where I got this fine little getup because I go to the same barber every time and they're the best in town. But I'm going to gatekeep that from the rest of you because I'm going to make them pay to get a little bit of a shout out on the show. So maybe we'll get a sponsor with a barber. But I found a great barber, and I always will appreciate people complimenting me on my haircut. Makes me feel good. So great way to start the day. Let's go.
Gary says, Austin, can we get a full beard like Sam going? No, we cannot. This is this might be a week worth. That's about all I got. Like I am not a cheat.
No, you can do it. I didn't think I could do it, and then I did it.
Yeah, but I mean, how many days did it take for you?
I can't tell you that.
All right, let's get it going officially here as we jump in to this official roster prediction show. Rashid says, if you have Trey Avery on this list, I'm going to riot, right? So we'll find out a little bit later on if Sam has Trey Avery on his 53-man roster. King VC out of the gates, lock in and like the show. Sam, let's get it going with your official prediction here on the 53-man roster, and we will start at the very beginning with the quarterback position. We've talked a lot about this with 3 quarterbacks in camp. How did you go? What did you do?
All right.
How many quarterbacks are on this 53?
Let's send it over to our first position group of the day. We're going to the quarterbacks. 2 Cornerbacks making the Titans 53-man roster: Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, and of course, a notable omission, Malik Willis is not on my 53. I think the Titans try and sneak Malik Willis through waivers. I think the Titans are potentially going to try and trade Malik Willis. Perhaps the reason why Brian Callahan, a head coach who is very forthcoming with information about how he views and certain players, the hierarchy on rosters, he is honest until it comes to the quarterback situation. And Brian Callahan still kind of tries to keep up this masquerade of it being an open competition for QB2. For me, this is cut and dry. Mason Rudolph is the Titans QB2. The question becomes, is Malik Willis worthy of that third roster spot? And as I went down, Austin, through the rest of the offense, which we will get to later this morning, I had a hard time finding a third quarterback roster spot. I think there's too many other needs and too many other players you're more intrigued by than Malik at this point in time.
Yeah, and we talked about this a lot, right? I think Monday was a big conversation about Malik and has he done enough to keep three quarterbacks on the roster? I think Malik has done enough. I think he's shown enough improvement. And I was listening to Brian Callahan with Ramon, Kalen, Will yesterday morning before practice, and he said, we're going to have to cut a lot of good players. And he's not talking about the quarterback. I think he's talking about wide receiver. He's talking about some tight ends that they might have to cut that are good players. There's some other positions that they have a lot of depth with. And I think Brian Callahan at this point and Rand Carthon too, would probably rather roll the dice on Malik Willis going through waivers than one of these other good positional players going through waivers. Like the point that you made earlier in the week, that, if you're another team, who are you going to sign to your 53 off of waivers? Is it going to be a quarterback who's a developmental prospect, or a guy that can probably do something by playing special team snaps on the game that's coming up in 10 days? It's going to be that positional guy. And so I agree with you. I think it's two. The one thing you threw out there is that you think the Titans could potentially try to trade Malik before the season. I mean, what's
I don't know if they'll
go deeper to that.
Well, I don't know if there's a taker, but I just try and look in the mirror and say, why is Brian Callahan, a head coach who is really not afraid to tell you how he sees things in training camp? You ask Brian Callahan straight up questions, and we'll get to a couple of them as I go through this roster. He's not afraid to be like, yeah, no. I think that guy's a little bit lower than you think he is. I think that guy's really going to have to try and fight hard to make our team. He tells you who he likes, and he's very not afraid to reveal. I love this dude. I think he's been open and honest. And then when it comes to the quarterback situation, we're sitting here going into week 3 of the preseason, our final preseason game. And it's almost like there's still this guise up that, this is a competition for the backup job. I don't believe that this backup job is open. Do I think there was a window for Malik to earn it? Yes, I think Brian Callahan approached training camp with an open mind. But you also have to have the understanding of you paid Mason Rudolph for a reason. You like and value his experience in a game. You like and value the situational football that he plays. The fact that the Steelers won football games with Mason Rudolph in at quarterback. And if you need to, because Will Levis goes down, the Titans feel like they can do the same. It does not feel like they could do that with Malik Willis, regardless of the strides that he has made. But if you're going to try and get something for him, you don't necessarily want it to be it's night and day between Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis. So maybe there is an element of, hey, let's, keep Malik in the running here and be we don't know which way we're going to go, and see if you can get a 6th round pick and try and dump him off in a trade. Do I think it's going to happen? Realistically, probably not. But I think the Titans are going to try and keep that door open as long as possible.
All right. We'll see if they choose to open the door and walk through it with a Malik Willis trade. I don't know. We'll find out. But going through Sam's 53-man roster predictions, that was the first position. We have the offensive skill positions coming up. So wide receiver, running back, tight end. Where does Sam go with roster cuts? Wide receiver, running back,
number calls here at all 3 of them. I'm just saying, I think you look, and when I looked at the roster, this is a good tease for it. You broke down a couple of spots, right? And you generally on a 53, when I do it, I'm all right, I got 48 guys that I feel are pretty locked in. 47, 48 guys that I feel strongly about are locked in. And then it's that last 5, a couple offense, a couple defense that you're it's a flip of a coin between an extra running back or an extra receiver or an extra tight end. And you know, it's fun. So like there's a couple dudes here that got left off that I wanted to have on my roster, and we'll talk about them after you tell folks about Smoky Mountain Tops.
That's right. Smoky Mountain Tops has been our great training camp sponsor here throughout the summer, and you can have Smoky Mountain Tops form your kitchen or bath. Call the pros to update your countertops at Smoky Mountain Tops. Family owned and operated for 30 years. Smoky Mountain Tops has installed over 100,000 projects. And if you've been in Bridgestone Arena or Neyland Stadium, you've seen the work from Smoky Mountain Tops, and they would love the opportunity to earn your business. Smoky Mountain Tops is proud to offer the luxurious Handstone Apimio Quartz collection as seen in their studios in Nashville and Knoxville. Handstone Quartz is known for quality and exceptional design with over 50 colors and unique patterns to draw your inspiration from. So if you want to book an appointment to see the Handstone Apimio Quartz and everything else that Smoky Mountain Tops has to offer, their phone number is 615-922-6539. You can also email Christy Banks right there on the screen. As always, tell them you heard about them on A to Z Sports, SmokyMountainTops.com. So, Sam, rolling through your 53-man roster predictions, you have two quarterbacks in Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. Let's get to wide receivers because this is about where he's going to get spicy. Wide receiver, running back, tight end is what we're about to do here, and there's a lot of interesting battles going on.
The number of wide receivers, always one of the more highly debated, roster situations heading into this time of year. I looked at it. I broke it down. I wanted to go with 7. I'm going with 6 wide receivers for the Titans. Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, Burks, NWI. No surprises there. And then I gave the final spot to Jaquan Jackson, the rookie out of Tulane, who has really kind of run away from the competition to be that backup slot. He seems to be one of the better returners on the team, especially at punt return. As far as a 7th wide receiver goes, my indication has always been that Kearis Jackson is not really in contention to make this roster. I think that was even more vindicated and validated by Brian Callahan's comments yesterday when he was asked about Kearis Jackson, and he was kind of like, to say that he's an established kick returner is a jump. I think he's fighting to make our team. And then he threw in, and the knee injury doesn't help, by the way, right? Like Kearis not being there, I don't think he's there. I think if there's a 7th wide receiver, it's Mason Kinsey. Mason Kinsey is the 7th wide receiver on this team. And I was this close. Tried to find a way to get Kinsey on there because one thing that surprised me about one, camp is just how good Mason Kinsey has been. And 2, Brian Callahan's perspective. He goes out of his way consistently to mention Mason Kinsey's versatility as something that he values. A guy who can play X, Y, or Z and line up anywhere. A guy who's used on all 3 phases of special teams. Mason Kinsey is hurt by the fact that he broke his pinky and he's not at 100% for this week. And often, Austin, I do not have I don't usually feel like the last preseason game is an opportunity for many guys to win a roster spot, right? Like there's guys on the Titans that could have a pick six, could have 3 interceptions, one of them being a pick 6 on Sunday, and they're not making the team, right? It doesn't override 3 months of practices and what the Titans have seen from them. Mason Kinsey is a guy to me who, if he has 4 for 50 and a touchdown on Sunday and he looks healthy and looks good, that could be what sets him over the edge and gets him on the team. And we'll get into the other position groups, but it's 6 wide receivers for me, and it was a tough call.
Yeah, Rashid says it's just a broken pinky. It's just a flesh wound, right? Well, for Mason Kinsey,
he's not catching footballs in practice. Mason Kinsey is catching tennis balls in practice.
Well, and he had 2 drops in the game last weekend, right?
After he broke his pinky.
Yeah, right.
He came back, and then 2 drops after coming back in the game, but probably because of the broken pinky, he had tape on his hand. And then yesterday in practice, he's running routes with the receivers. They're throwing a tennis ball at him. So he's not really able to catch a football right now. How does that?
Who's throwing the tennis ball at Mason Kinsey?
It's one of the, it's like the guys that throw the football. It's the same guy that would throw the football, but they have a tennis ball and they throw it at him. And
I bet that's got some heat on it.
Oh, yeah. It's also very difficult because, you're supposed to catch a football with 2 hands. Mason is catching the tennis ball with one hand. And so it's
Yeah.
like he runs his route, and if the ball's a little bit behind him, he has to like try and turn and like catch behind him,
Yeah.
T-Rex arm a tennis
That's
ball.
really funny. No, it's so like somebody says, your pinky is overrated. Gene says your pinky is more important than people realize. Like, right? Like when you catch a football, you either catch it with a diamond. If it's above your chest, you catch it with a diamond. If it's below, then you pinkies together, right? You can't really see it, but that's how you catch. And if it's over the shoulder, it's pinkies together.
Well, and
So
it's got, I mean, the way that a broken finger works, right? He's got both of these two fingers taped together, and so they're both kind of out of commission a little bit, and
he's just one piece of tape away from being Spock. And like that's not the easiest way to catch a football right there. So
yeah.
All right, so you've got 6 receivers. I think that's the correct answer. So let's move forward here. I think there could be
here's the other
domino effect, right? Because how many tight ends you keeping, how many running backs you keeping, how many safeties or inside linebackers, to where that's one of those 7th wide receiver opportunities.
Well, the other question that is a factor here is DeAndre Hopkins. And if DeAndre Hopkins is not healthy week 1, do the Titans feel a need to carry 7 onto the week 1 roster, knowing that D-Hop won't be active? And if you feel like Jaquan Jackson is a returner, not exactly an offensive option, a viable offensive option right now, then you might go into the week 1 game in Chicago with 4 available wide receivers that you feel good about on offense. That could be the reason why a 7th one sneaks onto the team, but it was too hard for me. Brian Callahan said that these last few roster spots are about just best player, best football player, a guy who we know can contribute. And to me, some of these other players I feel like can contribute, hence why I've got 4 running backs making the team, Austin. We've done the Julius Chestnut, Hassan Haskins argument back and forth. Why not both? Julius Chestnut's the better runner. Hassan Haskins, the special teams demon, as coined by Brian Callahan. So I have both of them making the roster, with Chestnut being the primary back that gets in the rotation with Spears and Pollard when needed in short yardage situations. And then Hassan Haskins used for his, kick ability on, blocking and covering kicks, which is certainly a factor with the new NFL rule and valuable in his own regard. So 4 running backs for me. And if you're looking at more impactful as a football player for this team and their current needs, I gave the nod to Hassan Haskins over Mason Kinsey. And I'm going to be honest, those were the 2 that were fighting for the last spot for me.
Okay. So Hassan Haskins and Kinsey, not Haskins versus Chestnut.
No, for me, Julius Chestnut is now the RB3. And because I think they do want a running back behind those 2 running backs. And I don't even believe they view Hassan Haskins as having offensive value at all. So the question becomes, do you want the special teams impact of Hassan Haskins or the wide receiver? There is special teams value to Mason Kinsey. It's a different special teams value. He's more of a gunner and return man on special teams, and then a wide receiver 6 or whatever in your offense versus, whatever
core,
Hassan Haskins is, the blocker.
Hassan Haskins can play guard or tackle on punt team, right?
Right.
So and he can also play that same opposite position on punt return. So I get what you're saying. It's more body type. How many Mason Kinsey body types are you going to be able to have on special teams versus probably not as many Hassan Haskins body types on special teams? Okay.
So it really came down to those 2 of being all right, the Kinsey potential positional value, maybe offensive value at receiver, and then this special niche type of special teamer versus Hassan Haskins and the type of special teamer he is and how they value it. And that was a coin flip. And as the roster kind of unfolded, I gave the nod to Haskins. And it was interesting because the thing that I'm actually more set on than running backs or wide receivers, 4 tight ends. 4 tight ends. Josh Wiley, Chigakonkwo, Nick Vannett is your blocking tight end. And then the undrafted rookie, David Martin Robinson, makes my roster. David Martin Robinson has made a late push, been really impressive as camp has gone on, continues to be involved in both the preseason games and training camp team periods. was wonderful against the Seattle Seahawks in joint practices. And Austin, this one to me comes down to how likely do the Titans feel like they are to get DMR to their practice squad. And that has sort of flipped for me over the last couple of weeks to not very likely. I think DMR gets claimed if the Titans try and sneak him through waivers. And so for that reason, they hold on to him here, keep 4 tight ends, and, make sure that the rookie remains a Tennessee Titan.
Interesting. Got thoughts about it. So only 6 receivers, but 4 running backs and 4 tight ends, which I think that's where we expected 3 maybe at running back, 3 maybe at tight end because of what this, Brian Callen was asked pretty clearly the other day of, how many tight ends do you need? 4 tight ends with all the 11 personnel you're going to be running. So let's go ahead and get the chat more involved. A lot of you guys are dropping your thoughts in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube. We need more likes on the show. So if you can, please hit that like button on Facebook and on YouTube. That goes a long way for us. The first question of the day: what's your biggest takeaway from Sam's offensive skill position cuts? What's your biggest takeaway from Sam's offensive skill position cuts between 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers, no Mason Kinsey, 4 running backs, 4 tight ends, including David Martin Robinson, the first UDFA to make this squad? What's your biggest takeaway from Sam's initial roster cuts on skill positions? But first, we talked about D-Hop there. How healthy is DeAndre Hopkins? Well, he's going to be running his football camp. That's coming up September 1st, just about 9 days away from right now at Nissan Stadium. It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for your son or daughter, ages 9 through 15, to go get a once-in-a-lifetime experience on an NFL field with a future Hall of Fame wide receiver running the camp, highly and heavily involved with the kids through the drills, through the whole camp experience for 2.5 hours on the turf. You can go see the difference in coconut versus the rubber pellets on that turf, right? You can see all that stuff at Nissan Stadium with D-Hop's football camp. I'm going to drop the link in the chat because you get 20% off when you use our code. That's 20% off when you use our code ATOZ20. That's ATOZ20 when you sign up for D-Hop's camp for 20% off. That means you can get a 2.5 hour plus camp experience on an NFL field with a future Hall of Famer for $80. I mean, you can't beat that. So go check that out. The link is right there in the chat. DeAndre Hopkins football camp, September 1st, 1:30 in the afternoon on that Sunday afternoon. Nothing else is going on. You guys got that right there with D-Hop's football camp. All right, Sam, back to the chat you go. I'm just going to recap because we asked what's your biggest takeaway from Sam's skill position receiver cut. So there's D-Hop right there with 6 wide receivers, 4 running backs, and then 4 tight ends. Notably, no Mason Kinsey, adding both Chestnut and Haskins, and keeping David Martin Robinson as the UDFA tight end. So Sam, the chat, so what's the biggest takeaway that you're seeing rolling in here?
Yeah, well, Patrick Bird believes Nick Vanette's going to go to waivers. Sean just says that he's wrong. We've got keep DMR, cut Vanette, don't need a blocking tight end. I think you do need a blocking tight end. I think Nick Vanette's the best blocking tight end, and I think he was signed to make this roster as the blocking tight end. Yeah, point blank. I think Nick Vanette's your third guy.
How about this take? Real quick on Nick Vanette. How about this take? Nick Vanette was signed for along the same reason as Mason Rudolph was signed. It's not flashy, but it's something that you need, and it's a proven veteran.
Yeah, you know what Nick Vanette's bringing to the table. Do I expect him to be super active in the offense? No, but I expect when you're in, running situations.
You need it available.
You need a blocking tight end, and Chig is not a very good blocker. Josh Wiley is a better blocker than Chig, but not as good as Nick Vanette. And so, yeah, you bring in the proven veteran to kind of have that role, and it's actually resulted in some production from Nick Vanette in some team periods, blocking, chipping, releasing, getting involved in the short passing game that way. So an interesting aspect of the offense there. DMR has been the favorite surprise of training camp. Would probably agree. It may be second biggest surprise. I actually have an article on A2ZSports.com coming out later today, Austin, about the person that I believe is the biggest surprise of camp and of this Titans roster, of kind of all of it in general, that I will break down. But David Martin Robinson is certainly one of those names that at the beginning of camp, you didn't really give much attention to. And then when you start seeing 88 more and more involved, you start having to pay more attention. Jonathan says Phillips is a huge bust is his takeaway. I saw Kenneth also said no mention of Kyle Phillips. Yeah, it was tough. I mean, Kyle Phillips would have been in this mix, but the hamstring, still no sign of him. Still no word about
Was
Kyle
it
Phillips.
tough though? But seriously, was it tough?
I mean, it's tough because I feel like those of us that are at practice, especially Austin, know what Kyle Phillips is capable of because over the last 3 years, we have seen it flash to such an extreme. We have seen his ability to separate. We have seen his ability, you just know what Kyle Phillips is. And when you see those highs, there is a lot of me that wants to believe that ceiling is still there. And it's a little bit weird when Kyle Phillips was brought into the Titans to be an improved version of Mason Kinsey. And for a minute he was, and it's almost this training camp, the pendulum swung back to Mason Kinsey of being he's way more versatile. He's way more involved. He's way more reliable. He fights through injuries to be on the practice field because he's the junkyard dog that just wants to play. Kyle Phillips, it's like every other week we've got him down with a hamstring or a calf or a shoulder or something that stunts his development. We start to gain momentum and then it's hit another roadblock. And so as I broke down the roster, I didn't see a world where a guy who doesn't contribute on special teams right now, they don't trust as a punt returner right now, where his spot on this team is. I don't know if it exists.
He doesn't have a job. That's as straightforward as it gets. Kyle Phillips would be the unneeded intern that was probably the boss's nephew. It's you ask yourself, what does he do here? What does this guy do in the office?
Kyle Phillips to me is more of the boomer working a job that a computer can do twice as fast. It's you have a job, you're brought in for a specific role, he's doing a specific job, and then he's not really doing it all that well anymore. And there's other options that are newer, younger, faster, do it better. And if you're not able to adapt and find value for yourself elsewhere on a team, you get out of a job and you don't give your company reason to keep you. And so that ultimately is where Kyle Phillips is right now. Is they brought in Jaquan Jackson to return. Kyle Phillips has still not been elite as a punt returner like we once thought he might be. He still hasn't been elite as a separator in the slot like we once thought he might be. And so it's kind of just faded to, like you said, being well, what exactly do you do here that we don't have somebody already doing?
Without a doubt. All right, so Sam, we asked. Go ahead. You got more comments?
Yeah, well, I'm just rolling through more of these reactions to people's takeaways. Jason says he doesn't think they keep three running backs. Do you think they keep two?
Think they keep.
Maybe he's. Oh, I think Curtis says I don't know about 4 running backs. I don't know. We'll see. People are questioning the running backs. I'm surprised about the 4 tight end prediction. This Demario says 3 running backs, not 4. Emmy Richbrand says Sam thinks they're still playing Vrabel ball. We got 4 running backs is a big takeaway. We got spot on followed by wrong immediately. My biggest takeaway is 4 tight ends. Just didn't think we would need that many with our new offensive scheme. I saw another, it looks like a Vrabel roster on here. And, well, I think it's it's low on receivers at 6 receivers. I saw another one that said Callie's not keeping 6 receivers. He's going to keep 7. Let me bring up the Cincinnati Bengals roster from their initial 53 last year. 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, 10 offensive linemen. And so we'll get to the offensive line. I have 9 offensive linemen. So I'm sacrificing 1 player on the offensive line to keep an extra tight end.
Right.
But it's not like I'm actually keeping more skill players.
Well, here's the thing.
I Brian Callahan typically did.
I asked John Sheeran, who's our Bengals writer for A to Z Sports, back in the spring, what's it been like as far as Zach Taylor and wide receivers on the roster? In 5 years, not counting this one, in 5 years, the Bengals have had wide receivers on the roster. Once have they had 6 last year. Twice they've had 7, but also twice they've had 5. So not like it's.
And last year, they had 6, and they had an injured player included in their 6. And so, or they went in with a guy that was strictly a punt returner pretty much, in Charlie Jones at the beginning of the year. So they had like 5 active wide receivers. They're not like an overload, let's stack 7 receivers on the roster type of thing. If you know who your best 6 or 5 are, sometimes you don't need to just run a 7th wide receiver who you don't feel like is going to work into your rotation at all.
All right, so I put up a poll, and I thought this was an interesting way that I thought of kind of on the fly that we didn't plan for, Sam. But I just put a poll on YouTube. Which Titans position group number is most likely to be wrong? 2 quarterbacks, 6 wide receivers, 4 running backs, 4 tight ends. So you probably have not seen the results yet. The results are very interesting to me. What do you think? Which of these 4 position groups, the number is most likely to be wrong?
You think what I think people said, or what I think?
No, I want to know what you think. Both. What do you think is most likely to be wrong? What do you think people answered?
I think people answered wide receiver. I would say it's most likely to be wrong at running back.
Okay. So you think the same as what people answered. It's running back. Blow away. 59% of the votes so far say that 4 running backs is most likely to be wrong. Now it's 58% as votes keep coming in. 6 wide receivers is at 20% wrong. 2 quarterbacks, 13. 4 tight ends at 10%, which I think is kind of crazy too, because
a lot of people confident in 4 tight ends.
That's where I'm least confident.
Really?
I would answer 4 tight ends.
I think it'll be 4 tight ends. I think the likelihood that David Martin Robinson gets claimed by another team is high, and therefore the Titans are picking or not whether or not they want to lose him. I don't think they're ready to lose him.
All right, so let's go ahead and get to the offensive line. You've already kind of teased it. You've got 9 offensive linemen on this roster. And then look, Joshua says tight ends was his vote, and Jacoby apparently says we don't need 4 tight ends. So now you get more people saying that they're pro, or think that 4 tight ends might be wrong. So all right, so Sam, we got defense to come up as well, and we've also got the offensive linemen. So hit us with your 9 offensive linemen that you think will make this initial 53-man roster.
Yep, 9 offensive linemen. I've got the tackles on the left, got the interior guys on the right. It's Latham, Petit Frere, Jaron Christian, and Jalen Duncan. That last tackle spot, a big kind of toss-up for me, was back and forth between Leroy Watson and Jalen Duncan to see who gets that 4th tackle spot. I don't think you need a 5th tackle. That seems a little unnecessary. So only 4 tackles for the Titans. 3 guards with your starters, Skoronski and Radens, and then Andrew Rupsich as the backup guard. Lloyd Cushenberry is the center. Daniel Brunskill is the backup center. And Daniel Brunskill's versatility here, to me, Austin, a big factor in only keeping 9 offensive linemen, because Brunskill can plug in as a center. He can also plug in as a guard if you need him to move around. So I think you're okay with 9. And yeah, you got a comment on that?
I think Daniel Brunskill could also be a 5th tackle if you really need right? If you're like the dog sitting in the middle of the room with the room on fire, and then Daniel Brunskill can play tackle for you, right? But like, hopefully that's a long way away, but it could happen. He's played plenty of tackle snaps on a team where Rand Carthon was in the front office before. So look, Leroy Watson's the cut here, the notable cut. I think that's the only decision. I'm with you. I think 9 offensive linemen is plenty at this point.
Yep. And I think, you have a lot of guys too who maybe have showed some promise. People are going to ask like OJ. People might wonder about your guard depth is guys like Cole Spencer, Latavius Simmons, people who you're going to be able to get to your practice squad if you want to keep them around. So I'm not really worried about any of these dudes being claimed that maybe don't make this team. Leroy Watson, I guess, is a potential to be claimed, but even him, you could, I guess, foresee a world where he gets to the Titans practice squad as that 5th tackle option as well. So 9 offensive linemen for me. And, this ultimately, I wasn't going to take away from one of those skill position groups to keep an extra guy in this room.
All right. So 9 offensive linemen. So I think that's a pretty solid spot there for the Titans offense. Now let's flip over to the Titans defense. Sam's roster cuts on a couple days before the final preseason game. We'll get to the defensive side of the football, a couple roster spots up for grabs there that we'll get to. But first, the Bone and Joint Institute is where you should turn for all of your injury needs. boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Whenever you get hurt in life, it is the Bone and Joint Institute, if you're a Middle Tennessean, that you should turn to. Right off of I-65 and Highway 96 in Franklin, right next door to Williamson Medical Center. So easy to get to. Everything you can get done at that one location. Clinics, testing, imaging, physical therapy, surgery center, all of it right there. They're experts right there. They also have clinics and physical therapy centers across Williamson County sprinkled in for your convenience. So when I was doing physical therapy back in the spring for my knee tendonitis, I hit up the Brentwood spot that was just about 15 minutes away from my house. Easy. Got me going good. Got that knee feeling a lot better in just 7 visits. That was scheduled for 12 visits, got done in 7. How about that? Save that money right there. So Bone and Joint Institute can take care of you. It's so easy to book an appointment. boneandjointtn.org.
Today's show powered by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports when you sign up with BetMGM and get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. It's the best way to do sports betting when the risk is limited and you can get 2 shots at winning big. So use the bonus code ATOZ Sports. Place that first wager, and whatever your first wager amount is, it goes back into your account in the form of a bonus bet if your first bet misses. BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas, and BetMGM.com.
All right, Sam, let's go ahead and jump into it. So we're going to start on the defensive side of the football. Now we've gone through the offense. So begin with Big Jeff's unit, the defensive line. There's been injuries there to hit the depth on this spot, but I feel like we feel confident in really the top 3. But who do you have on making the squad on the defensive line on the initial 53?
Yep. Looking at the defensive line, I have got 5 defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen making this team. The top 3, like you said, not really a question. Jeffrey Simmons, Devondre Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day. I don't really believe Keandre Coburn is a question. I think he's their 4th best. I think he's had a really good camp and represented himself well. He makes the team. It was a coin flip for me on this last spot. Quinton Bohanna is who I went with. This is one, Austin, that I feel like I'm the most in the dark on and could potentially see a surprise. If this was Isaiah Ayton, if this was Abdullah Anderson, if this was, I don't know, TK McClendon, although he's dealing with an injury. Yeah, turf toe, which probably doesn't help his case at all. This is where I could see a surprise, this 5th defensive lineman, but I think Bohanna probably has the most experience with this unit, the most experience in the NFL period of these guys, and is ultimately who I go with for the Titans. He kind of fits the bill of these really big, powerful defensive linemen on the interior to kind of stuff up some run gaps, fills in similar to Coburn as like a big replacement for Devondre Sweat.
Well, let's think about that, though, because Keandre Coburn is a large human being, right? He is 6'2", 332. Quinton Bohanna is even bigger. He's 6'4", 360.
Yeah.
That's 3 Devondre Sweat positions. There's no Jeff Simmons. There's no Sebastian J backup. So honestly, I think if Marlon Davidson didn't get hurt, he would
had Marlon Davidson on mine last week. Marlon Davidson was on my roster.
He would easily be probably the 4th, and then Coburn's your 5th. Maybe.
I mean, I think Coburn is the 4 for me, but
okay. So I don't think you're going to keep Bohanna and Coburn. I think that's too much meat, to be honest.
To me, I just think I think there's 5, and when I look at the roster, I don't know where your 5th is. Like this is a position that's frustrating because
I'll tell you what it is.
Well, the 5th is probably not on the team.
That's what I was going to say. Here's what it is. You're keeping Isaiah Ayton on the initial 53-man roster as the 2nd UDFA on this team, and you have to keep him on the 53 to just submit the roster to the league. You probably then go claim somebody off waivers that has more experience, but now you've kept Ayton from waivers, and then you stash him on the practice squad after you sign somebody else that got cut. Because you need another Jeffrey Simmons / Sebastian Joseph Day body. You got Devondre Sweat, you got Coburn, you have your nose tackles. You don't need another 330-plus pound guy. You need that guy closer to 300 that can pitch in for Jeff or Joseph Day. That's Isaiah Eiten. And I like Isaiah Eiten. I think he's got a lot of upside. He looks like a moose. I mean, the guy is built like a freak. He is so big, not a lot of body fat on him, very strong, can be explosive. I want to see that developed more. And so I think that is what I would do if I were the Titans. I'd keep Eiten on the 53 and then make that practice squad move on a waiver addition.
Yeah, not a bad call. I definitely think that's a possibility here. And maybe they try and do the same thing with Quentin Bohanna and just
maybe
keep him on the initial and then, cycle through whoever.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the edge. Maybe a surprise to some people, but I'm very firm in my belief now that the Titans are only keeping 4 edge rushers, 4 outside linebackers. It's Landry, Key, Harrell, Weaver, point blank. In that order, by the way, Jalen Harrell's the new 3 on this outside linebacker unit. Rashad Weaver does really good things against the run. So does Jalen Harrell. But the physicality in Harrell's pass rush, I think, really sets him apart from Weaver. And if you're putting a outside linebacker in for Arden Key in a potential run pass situation, Jalen Harrell to me is the more logical second edge rusher. And every time he has cycled in this week with the first team defensive line, and it's Simmons, Landry, Sweat, Harrell, this man is making plays. So it's 4 outside linebackers. I think the most damning thing for the rest of the outside linebacker room, Austin, is Brian Callahan getting asked about the depth of this unit and who else is standing out and who else behind Harrell and Weaver is, looking like a contributor. Brian Callahan answered by basically being like, well, we're going to blitz Jamal Adams a lot. We're going to use some big nickels to get down in pass rush. And I kind of went, not exactly great.
Too, right?
Well, right, yeah. But, I mean, not exactly a ringing endorsement here for your Caleb Murphy, your Shane Ray, who's gone, milk carton silent, really, since that first week of training camp. So I think you can get both Ray or Caleb Murphy to your practice squad. Neither one of them's getting claimed. There's not a real need for me to burn a roster spot on either one. You've got a good rotation of 4 outside linebackers, and then you'll be using Jamal Adams, Kenneth Murray, even Roger McCreary on some blitzes pretty significantly. I don't need more than 4. I'm good.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with the Arden Key's hamstring and if that's a thing too, as he tweaked that.
Should be back next week.
Okay,
Should be back next week.
So that's not that big of a deal. A lot of people in the chat saying cut Weaver. So I would like to say something too, because Monday's show, I had 6 position battles that I thought were locked up after that second preseason game. And Sam, I think you disagreed with me on at least one, but maybe 1.5, because I said Jalen Harrell is edge 3. You were with Jalen Harrell edge 3. And I said, I think Julius Chestnut's the running back 3. You thought differently on Monday. I'm glad to see that you have squarely both Chestnut at running back 3 and Harrell at edge 3 just a few days later. So I'm glad that you came over to my side on that.
Yeah, cool. Watching Harrell with the ones, watching Harrell rotate in with Weaver on the ones this week at practice was really a big, it is legitimately an everyday thing now that I look up and go, Jalen Harrell, there's Jalen Harrell. Oh, Will Levis sacked again. Who is it? Oh, 92. There's Jalen Harrell getting after the QB. It's an everyday thing, and you really can't argue with it once that guy is working in with the ones and making more plays than Weaver. The Julius Chestnut thing for me is more reading into the connotation and vibe that the head coach is speaking about these running backs with. And it has felt like Brian Callahan has just slowly soured on Hassan Haskins as camp has gone. Like when he was first talking about Hassan Haskins, it was like Hassan, thumper, good physical runner. They felt good about it. And I was like, yeah, if you're looking for a big physical back, you go Haskins, you could go Chestnut, but Haskins is by far like the special teams player. And the Titans talked about Chestnut as being like, yeah, he's a better runner, but like, what does that weigh to special teams value? And then, as we've kind of gone, it's like, no, Chestnut is not just the better runner. They don't really view Hassan as much of a runner at all. If it was like Chestnut is here, Haskins is here in terms of ability on offense, I think Haskins makes the team above him, and they probably don't keep Chestnut. But the fact that it feels like it's here versus non-factor, that like locks Chestnut into place for me.
Yep. I'm right there with you. Yeah,
I
he
would
is
be
a
very, very surprised if Julius Chestnut does not make the team.
Seems that way for sure. All right. So we've gone through D-line, we've gone through edge, another spicy position battle because Bork said between Harrell and James Williams, they might be two of the biggest 7th round steals out of the draft in a few years. Well, let's go to James Williams' position at inside linebacker. How many inside backers do the Titans keep, Sam?
Yeah, it's going to be 5. What 5 is tough. It's going to be tight because there's 6 viable options here that I think Titans fans are going to want to keep around.
And 2 guys currently hurt.
2 guys currently hurt, which is absolutely a factor and potentially, get a little tricky here. But inside linebacker, I went without trickery. I assume the Titans are not playing games. And I will go with 5, Murray, Gibbons, Campbell, James Williams, Cedric Gray. Goodbye, Otis Reese. Get ready to learn practice squad, buddy.
Don't take a personal shot at. There's 3 guys. There's 3 guys hurt. I forgot Otis is in the concussion protocol too.
Yeah, Otis is in concussion protocol. Cedric Gray's dealing with the shoulder. Luke Gifford is down, and he's a clear special teams impact guy. It's been a lot of Campbell and James Williams rotating in on that second team. I just think the Titans are really, really, really high on James Williams. They love his potential. They do not want to lose him. His athleticism alone makes him a worthy candidate to make this team. The big question mark, Austin, Cedric Gray, because Cedric Gray does not deserve a spot on this football team. But do you rely on Cedric Gray? Like Otis Reese deserves a spot on this team over Cedric Gray. Do you trust Cedric Gray's tape from UNC? The fact that he was a 4th round pick, keep him around? Or this was thrown out. Shout out to Teron Davenport throwing out this idea to me, and I didn't throw it in my roster, but it's very possible. Maybe they IR Cedric Gray, send him out for the year, and say, hey, come back next year, man. Like, we like your upside, but we don't need you this year, right? We've got James Williams. We've got Otis. We've got Chance Campbell off the bench. We don't need Cedric Gray right now. Come back next year, get healthy. We'll work with you all season once you are healthy to get your, improve your game. And maybe that is what the Titans do to try and keep all of their inside linebackers they like and, not potentially literally a red shirt for Cedric Gray and not lose him by cutting a 4th round pick just because he was hurt in training camp.
That's wild. I don't think that's going to happen because
there's no way he clears waivers.
No, I agree with that. I don't think injury was IR for the whole year seems like an overreaction to me.
It's a way to manipulate. Like this happens more than you think. Guys they're like, you're hurt for 3 weeks. Okay, we'll sit you for the whole year. Because
I think, if I'm Kyle Phillips, put me on IR.
Yeah.
But
do you want to use one of your 8? Do you want to use one of your 8 spots on Kyle Phillips?
No, you don't get him though. No, because they have to make the 53 to be eligible for that 8. If you're putting Cedric Gray and Kyle Phillips on IR right now, that they're done. They're out for the year. If I'm Kyle Phillips, if I'm Caleb Farley, put me on IR, give me half my salary, and I'll live to fight another season. And because neither of those guys are going to make the team. I think Cedric Gray is going to make the team. I think it doesn't feel like the injury's long-term enough for them to put him on IR. I get what you're saying there about how.
I know what you mean by the injury's not long-term enough for them to necessarily put him on IR, but it's also like if he was active right now, you wouldn't have him active on game day. He hasn't been out there and he hasn't shown you anything.
Sure.
Like you would feel so much better about Otis being on the field than you would Cedric Gray right now. At least I would.
I think
definitely feel better about James Williams.
He was nearly a top 100 pick. I mean, I think so I don't think that's going to, I think the question for me is Luke Gifford versus James Williams. And
I don't think Luke Gifford's making this team.
But if he didn't have a concussion, I think that changed. Yeah.
I mean, it would be tight.
To me, Luke Gifford is the perfect waiver wire ad for any other football team in the league.
Absolutely. The thing with Luke Gifford, that makes him an attractive waiver wire, and he'll probably make a 53 if he can get healthy, is the fact that he's got NFL experience, that he can absolutely contribute on special teams day one. And he's a plug and play sort of a guy. I just I think this Titan staff loves James Williams. They're really, really bullish on his potential development side. The athleticism, the I guess hit factor in this defense to get downhill and pop somebody. He's still really learning to play the linebacker position, and I think they believe they can mold him into a really productive player with 1-2 years of development. And so I don't think they're willing to like let that walk out the door for special teams value of Luke Gifford, right? That is at the end of the day where a Mike Vrabel difference is potentially made. It's like, is Luke Gifford the better special teams player? Yes. Is he a good enough special teams player to sacrifice the potential upside of another player like James Williams? To me, no. I think the answer is no to this Titans coaching staff. And I think the injuries at inside linebacker that have allowed James Williams to rotate as high as the second team defense recently have really helped him as well make some strides and show what he's capable of.
All right, so I do have a couple of you guys in the comments are saying that there has been a rule change in injured reserve when it comes to pre.
It's 8. It's one of your 8 now.
Well, what I'm seeing here is that let me get out of here. Associated Press pop up. If a player is placed on injured reserve before the regular season begins, he could miss the entire season unless, per a rules adjustment this year, this is from July, they are designated to return during the roster cut down to 53 after camp. Teams can designate up to 2 such players for this. So on the 50, this is what my interpretation of this. On the 53-man roster, you have your 53 guys. If you have 2 players that are currently on injured reserve, you can designate them to return without them. So like you could do in this situation, let's just say Marlon Davidson's on IR. Let's say you put Kyle Phillips and Cedric Gray on injured reserve and Caleb Farley on injured reserve before the 53. You can only designate 2 of those 4 to return. And so in my opinion, Marlon Davidson's a bicep. That's probably not until December, right? He's done. So he doesn't count. Cedric Gray and then maybe Kyle Phillips would be those 2. I'd put Caleb Farley out there.
So they're on IR. They don't count to your 53 and you can bring them back if you want.
2 of them.
But I believe if you activate somebody, if you designate somebody to return, they count against your regular season IR total of 8.
I mean, I
believe so.
Maybe, but you can just use 2 of the 8 of a pre-53-man roster IR. Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, the question: do you want to use 2 of 8 before the season even begins?
You don't have to use them. Like you don't have to bring them back.
Yeah.
But there's nobody else that you would put on IR before the 53. Like your Cedric Gray idea, that makes sense, right? Like he can be one of your 8 and that might be worth it. But you have the ability to make the decision in August instead of having to make the team.
Brady confirming they do count towards the 8. And so that's the question, right? It's like, do you want to, like a Cedric Gray, it would make sense. You want to use the 8 to keep him. Is Kyle Phillips worth one of your 8 IR spots to keep him? I don't know. Like that's a question.
But you can still, you can designate him to return and then just not bring him back.
I think if you designate a guy to return, it automatically counts against your 8.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like you can't
fair.
designate a guy to return. So, okay. All right. Well, that's what I got at inside linebacker. I think it's an interesting group. It is. There's a lot of possibilities because of the injuries from Garrett Wallow, JoJo Doman, Luke Gifford, Cedric Gray, Otis Reese. That's 5 inside backers banged up right now. So how the Titans manipulate their roster there is going to be just fascinating to watch. Let's move to corners. Shield your eyes. 6 corners. And Trey Avery's the 5th, by the way. L'Jarius Sneed, Cheeto Awuzie, Roger McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee, Trey Avery, Gabe Jeudy-Lally. I've been having this debate back and forth, Gabe Jeudy-Lally or Trey Avery for kind of the longest time. And over the last week or so, I've kind of been saying it's going to be both Trey Avery and Gabe Jeudy-Lally. So Eric Garror, a notable cut here. Hey, you might not like it. You might not want to believe it, but Trey Avery's working as a starting cornerback. He has been for weeks with Snead
by default, though. It is by default.
But it's him, Brownlee, McCreary out there as the starting cornerback. So where do we want to believe he's at in the hierarchy? I think he's 5th. Gabe Jeudy-Lally brings good physicality and has been a huge surprise in camp with how he's played. Good versatility for Jeudy-Lally as well. I think that he fits Denard Wilson's defense very nicely, and he'll make this team as your number 6.
Right. So I think why Gare doesn't make it, because Bork says, isn't Eric the backup slot?
I think it's because when Roger McCreary has sucked, and there have been a couple moments where Denard Wilson has grown frustrated with Roger McCreary, he sticks Jarvis Brownlee in the slot and he moves Jarvis in. And so you have one of your reserve corners that can play inside or outside. And so there's less of a need to bring Eric Gare.
And Jamal Adams and Elijah Molden. Because I think
can come down and play big nickel. Yeah.
Quandre Diggs' signing creates that domino effect, right? Where Eric Gare is, maybe your backup nickel on paper. But I do think in this, like Daniel Brunskill, right? Like if the house is on fire, then Daniel Brunskill can play tackle. That's why you only need 9 offensive linemen. I think Eric Gare doesn't make the team because same thing with Kyle Phillips, right? He might be the backup slot to Tyler Boyd on paper, but if they need it in a game, they're going to put Ridley or D-Hop in there.
Yep. No, and I think
or NWI or Jaquan Jackson over Kyle Phillips.
Yeah, I would maybe not Jaquan Jackson, but
over Kyle, and maybe not. I mean, I got a little carried away. I think. But I do think Avery's not making this team. I think he is.
He is. I think he is. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody in the Titans. I mean, I haven't looked at what my media colleagues are ripping on their 53-man rosters. I think you'd be hard pressed to find one that doesn't have Trey Avery on the team. I think he's on the team. I don't know how you would keep like Brownlee, Judy, Lawley, Gare as like 3 corner. I just don't see a world where Trey Avery
that would be the other option.
But I don't see that happening. Or unless it's 5 corners, but I don't think that's enough corners. I think you keep 6,
especially when 2 of them haven't done anything in practice.
Yeah, I think there's a good point here. Maybe this is a position group that number 5, number 6 corners, or at least one of them are not on the roster yet. Like this is somebody you like their skill set, somebody Denard Wilson's worked with in the past. Who knows, right? Like becomes available. You say bye to Trey Avery. You bring in somebody else. That's a real possibility here.
Did it last year with the guy from the Bears? Was it Kendall Vildor? Remember?
Yeah, Kendall Vildor, Bears legend. I mean, if you're bringing in somebody, like you might say goodbye to Trey Avery, but you can only make your initial 53 off of the guys on your team. I think Trey Avery is on the initial 53. That's what we're doing here. Let's go to safety. We got safety. I've got 5 safeties. 5 safeties. I think because of what you said, the fact that Jamal Adams comes down in big nickel, the fact that Elijah Molden comes down in big nickel, the fact that you're a little bit thinner at outside linebacker and you're using some of your safeties as edge defenders allows you to keep a 5th. And I'm going with Matthew Jackson making the team as that 5th safety, a guy who's had a very good camp, a guy who I think is very deserving of a roster spot. I think he's your 5th safety here. So Hooker and Diggs are guys deep. Adams, Molden kind of similar in the role that they could potentially play. And then Matthew Jackson makes the team. Going to try and find this nugget somewhere here. I think my colleague Paul Kaharski had a very good nugget about Matthew Jackson, and he has basically led the Titans in special team snaps this preseason, and has been very good on those special team snaps. So I'll try and find that. But Austin, your thoughts on 5?
615 kid Matthew Jackson make the team. I think that's a solid opportunity for him. And I think you're onto something with what happens if Amani Hooker gets hurt? What happens if Quandre Diggs gets hurt? The same thing that we talked about with a D lineman of you've got a lot of the big dudes with Sweat, Coburn, and Bohanna. You need somebody else. So it's like you've got your nickel safeties or your bigger physical safeties that you do not want to put in space in Jamal Adams and Elijah Molden. You need another guy that you feel okay about putting in space. And that's where I think Matthew Jackson comes in, maybe over a Mike Brown or a Shaheem Carter. That's probably those 2 other options.
Matthew Jackson is the team leader in interceptions in training camp. Paul did not have him making the team, but Paul does note, and this is the nugget that I saw, Matthew Jackson played 2 snaps on defense, but 15 on special teams in the second preseason game. That was the second most on the team. He was tied for the team lead in special teams tackles last season. So Matthew Jackson had a special teams impact for the Titans in NFL games in 2023. And I think that will, you're looking at a fifth safety who's also had some flashes on defense. That's a guy who makes this roster for me.
All right.
Wrap it up. Look at some specialists. Hey, Braden Arvison, womp womp. Not making this team. It's Nick Folk, Ryan Stonehouse, Morgan Cox. I won't have a debate there. We know what this is. That's the three specialists.
Yep. Pretty self-explanatory on that. Real quick, Paulie D says, question, Snead and Woozy going to be available for opening day? Yep. We talked about that yesterday. They say. Yep. So you can go check yesterday's show towards the second half of the show. We talked about that from Denard Wilson. But all right, let's go ahead and get to our last question for you guys here, because we want to know, where will Sam be most wrong? Where will Sam be most wrong with his 53-man roster predictions? We'll run through them quickly again after this. But first, Farm Bureau Health Plans. This is where you can get right with your health coverage, because they can help lower your rate and get you better coverage for whatever your situation is, whether it's for your individual coverage or maybe your family, whether it's a growing family or you and your spouse are empty nested. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been doing it in Tennessee for 78 years, and they've continued to adapt as technology and society has changed, and Farm Bureau Health Plans is right there for you to help you out, not pay out of pocket for a couple dentist visits a year that you need to take care of those that dental hygiene. Big deal as you continue to age. And vision, if you need it, don't pay out of pocket for your contacts. Don't pay out of pocket for things you don't need to when it comes to vision coverage. Farm Bureau Health Plans can take care of you. And get a quote today by visiting our link, fbhp.com/ATOZ.
Today's show powered by BetMGM. BetMGM is the sportsbook born in Vegas. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports when you sign up and get up to $1,500 back in the form of a bonus bet if your first bet misses. That's the bonus code ATOZ Sports on BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas.
Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 or older. Tennessee only new customer offer. All promotions out of club requirements. First online money wager. Only rewards issued now. Bonus bets that expire in 7 days. And for problem game sport, call Tennessee Redline 800-889-9789. Where was Sam most wrong? So I will let you run through quarterback to specialist. Give us the recap. Where were you most wrong? That's what we're going to get to with the chat here in a second. Also, hit that like button while Sam's giving us a recap of his 53-man roster. Like the show, please, on Facebook and on YouTube. Sam, recap us.
All right, quarterbacks. I've got two quarterbacks, Levison Rudolph. Malik Willis does not make the cut, opted for other players on offense getting the nod over him, and only 6 wide receivers. Jaquan Jackson gets the 6th spot. Notable omissions include Mason Kinsey and Kieris Jackson, both dealing with injuries throughout this last week of training camp, trying to fight for a roster spot. The question, do the Titans keep 7 or do they keep 4 running backs? That's what I've got down. Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, Julius Chestnut, Hassan Haskins all make the team. Chestnut is the more formidable offensive option behind Spears and Pollard. Haskins, the special teams demon, according to Brian Callahan, is one of the 53 best players for Tennessee. Tight ends, Josh Wiley, Chigakonko, Nick Vannett, David Martin Robinson. Martin Robinson, somebody who may be not active on game day, but somebody who the Titans are going to want to keep on their 53 to try and develop the young tight end. I don't think he gets through waivers to another team. He probably gets claimed and put on a 53. The Titans don't want to lose him. So 4 tight ends, and they go a little bit bigger at the position. Only 9 offensive linemen, though. The versatility of Daniel Brunskill off the bench, his ability to go from tackle to guard to center, gives you the ability to keep 9. It's 4 tackles, 3 guards, and 2 centers for the Titans, and no real surprises with Jalen Duncan beating out Leroy Watson for the final spot as a tackle. To the defense, the defensive line has 5 defensive linemen on the interior. Simmons, Sweat, and Joseph Day all locks. Keandre Coben, the clear number 4, and Quinton Bohanna gets a spot for me. But Isaiah Aiton, certainly an argument for him there, and potentially a spot where Tennessee could look to claim a veteran option after waiver cuts are made. Outside linebacker, I go thinner with only 4. Landry Key, Jalen Harold jumps Rashad Weaver as the outside linebacker 3, but Weaver still makes the team. Tennessee doesn't need to go deeper at this position because Jamal Adams can rush off, from his safety position, can bring some pressure. Kenneth Murray gets downhill, puts pressure on the quarterback as well. And quite frankly, the depth is bad. Nobody else has done much to warrant getting a roster spot. Inside linebacker, the most chaotic position group of the entire roster. Kenneth Murray, Jack Gibbons, Chance Campbell have all cemented roster positions for me. James Williams, a 7th-round rookie that has a lot of upside and continues to improve in training camp. Titans very high on his development. And I sneak Cedric Gray onto the team. 4th-round pick for the Titans out of North Carolina, dealing with a shoulder injury and has been for weeks, has not been able to play in the preseason for Tennessee, doesn't really deserve a roster spot, but you loved what he did at UNC. You love what he could be in the future. Do they get tricky? Put a guy on IR, maybe find a way to get Otis Reese or Luke Gifford on the team. I've got my eyes locked in on inside linebackers as the roster comes out. Cornerbacks, it's 6 corners with Snead and Awuzie down. The Titans have played Roger McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee, and Trey Avery as their starters. Gabe Judy-Lawley, the surprise candidate out of the University of Tennessee, makes the team for his physicality and his continued improvement, as well as the versatility he brings to Denard Wilson's defense. At safety, it's your 4 vets, Hooker, Diggs, Adams, and Molden. Matthew Jackson, the surprise for his special teams impact, 2nd on the Titans in special teams tackles last year, or maybe 1st on the team. I don't remember what the stat was. He sneaks onto the roster, has also led the Titans in interceptions in training camp with 3. Matt Jackson, a local product, sneaks onto the team. The specialists, no surprise. It's Nick Folk, Ryan Stonehouse, Morgan Cox.
All right, so where were you most wrong? I think you were most wrong on the interior D-line. I kind of talked about that in the main segment. We went through it. I think keeping 3 big guys that are over 330 pounds is not going to be what they're going to do. So I think Bohanna doesn't make the team. I think it's either Eiton or McClendon, even with the turf toe, that can be that placeholder until they go claim somebody else off waivers for that spot. I think Sam, like I know you guys are doing Titans media, who can have the most correct with the 53-man roster. You got a good one because I saw a comment right here from Adam says Sam did nothing wrong, good roster, and even better haircut. Sam's on fire.
Oh,
I think you're going to miss 4. I think 4 are going to be wrong. Okay. I think you're going to get 49 out of 53. There's just always a wild card that nobody's expecting that does it. But I think the most wrong was that 5th D-line spot.
Okay. I mean, I'll take 49 out of 53. I'm really hoping to hit 50 this year. Really hoping to hit 50 correct. That would be a nice little it's very hard though, because like you said, there's just things that we can't even really see all the time. It's like, oh, Anthony Kendall made the team. And you go, oh, well, nobody really had that one. All right. Like, so big surprise there. But yeah, they are due before the game in New Orleans. So I'll have to submit that. And I'm feeling good. The chat thinks I'm wrong with 4 tight ends. I've seen a lot. Jay thinks it's 7 wide receivers and 3 tight ends. Patrick Bird says 4 tight ends and Avery making the roster. Trey Avery ain't no way. I think it's gonna happen. Trey Avery, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Cornerback and quarterback. Raz says 7 wide receivers. DeMarco says Billy Jones says 4 running backs. We got more Trey Avery cut. Look, I am with you guys. Do not take this as like I would keep Trey Avery on the roster. I'm with you. It's a prediction though, and I have to be honest. I got to give you guys truth, and I'm getting you ready. I'm preparing you now for when Trey Avery has made the Titans 53-man roster. You guys are like, soften the blow a little bit. You'll be ready for it. It won't be a surprise.
Yes. Yep. All right. Where do you think you're most wrong? Where are you kind of most?
Nowhere. I think I'm 53.
Oh, you're solid.
Yeah. I mean, I do think inside linebacker is the hardest to predict. I can absolutely hear your argument on interior defensive line as well. But for me, I just feel nervous about inside backer because I know how many variables are at play. Like, I think I could get 2 wrong at inside linebacker because this guy's on IR. They're adding a player that I didn't have on, and then they're you don't know, right? So maybe it's not Cedric Gray. Maybe it is Otis Reese instead of James Williams. There's just it's a really competitive position group that like genuinely is interesting because coming into the year, it was this group is terrible. Like they're thin,
right? And
it's been a surprise how many guys have played well at inside backer. Like Chance Campbell has had a heck of a training camp and a heck of a preseason. James Williams, Otis Reese, both made late pushes to make this team and continue to sort of ascend. You've got Luke Gifford, who I thought shined in some practices on defense when he got opportunity before going down, is obviously a special teams impactful special teams player. Garrett Wallow probably makes this team if he doesn't get the tear his pec and go out for the year. So there's just like a lot of guys that have shined, and we thought Cedric Gray might be like the number 1 inside linebacker when he was drafted. And somehow he's your 5 now, and you're still okay. So it's just an interesting group that I think I could potentially have misread, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Look, I like it. 53-man roster projection. Your article will be out today, Saturday, Sunday?
Today.
All right.
This afternoon. Yeah, this afternoon it'll be out.
There we go. All right, time for some good news. Ain't that good news? If you have some good news to share, throw it in the chat as we head to the final weekend of the preseason. Shout out Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where to go. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Go see them in Lebanon. Payne Bone and his team out there. Say hey and get a new ride. WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So good news in the chat. Would love to hear some good news. If anybody has good news to share. So as they are flying in, Sam, do you see good news from the chat that you want to get to, or maybe even start with yours?
Michael Snyder says college football starts tomorrow. Does it?
It does. Week 0.
Oh, who's playing?
Keep reading good news. I'll pull it up.
Is there a lot of teams? Is a lot of games? It's not like one game.
I mean, there are games. There are several games. Games that you would want to watch. I'll let you the judge.
Okay, that's what I thought. My boys are next week, so I'm not even worried.
Okay, here you go. So you got tomorrow.
Florida State, Georgia Tech, according to Michael Snyder.
That is the only game regarding a top 25 football team, and it is in Ireland, in Dublin, right there. You also have.
I get it. Like, all right, we're gonna watch it because it's football, but Florida State's gonna be Georgia Tech by 40.
Yeah, but it's also 11 a.m. So like when you wake up, you get a couple things done.
No, hey,
boom, football right there.
I'll turn it on, but like, I'll have it on as like a background because I'm not gonna be like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you also got 3:00 Montana State, New Mexico State, right?
That's
right now, Montana State 13.5-point favorites. Florida State just 10-point favorites. So if you want to go to BetMGM and you think it's going to be that,
hammer it. I agree.
It's in Ireland. It's weird, right?
Don't care. Georgia Tech. I'll bet against Georgia Tech -10 all day long.
SMU, Nevada, SMU -25, and then the nightcap, 11 p.m. Central kickoff. Delaware State travels to Hawaii. The Warriors -40.5. This might be the biggest favorite Hawaii has ever been. You're going from Delaware to Hawaii. That's so many hours.
What is that flight? 12 hours, 11 hours, something like that.
I mean, keep reading good news, and I'll pull up the flight. How do you fly to Delaware to Hawaii? Yeah.
Well, a lot of people are on college football now, so let's see. Good news, preseason is almost over, which is good news. Let's see. Nick bought tickets for Titans at the Bears. That is good news. See you there in Chicago, Nick. I will be there. Good news is we win one game on Saturday or Sunday. We make the playoffs for the 10th consecutive year. Who are we talking about?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, I'm like, I don't know what sport is going on right. Like, is it nobody's about to clinch in baseball? I don't know. We'll see. Let's see what other good news we got. Good news. Derek is recovering from COVID and probably get back to work next week. Let's go. Welcome back to health, Aaron. Patrick says,
okay. All right. I have to type because I Googled flights from Delaware to Hawaii, and you can't even fly out of Delaware. You have to.
You're not getting a direct flight.
I don't think I know a city in Delaware, to be honest. So train. Here are your options: train to Philadelphia, train to Newark, train to Baltimore. That's it, right? You have to either take a train to one of those 3 cities: Philadelphia, Newark, or Baltimore, and then you fly to Hawaii. Like, you can't even fly out of Delaware. I guess you have Dover, right? Like, that's the only. Does anybody know a city in Delaware outside of Dover? Dover, Delaware. That's the alliteration. When you're on.
Yeah, I could think of a couple if I really tried. Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah, Roy says Wilmington.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the other one that comes to mind. I don't know any other ones other than Wilmington and Dover, though.
There you go. So
I'm sure there's like a Springfield.
Oh, there's a Springfield in every state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Springfield, Delaware. There you go. Take that.
All right, so back to your Harrington, Delaware, Bloomington, Delaware.
You could be making cities up at this point, guys. I don't know. I know Wilmington.
Okay, Chris says that you have to go to Philly. Wilmington has an airport that flies.
Yeah, well, that is the thing. Is Delaware is basically Philadelphia. It's like a 20-minute drive to Philadelphia. So
yeah,
just do that.
So,
go to PHL.
Continue.
What am I continuing with?
Good news.
Okay, now I got to scroll.
There's no Springfield in Delaware. What even is that state?
Yeah, it's not a real state then.
Chris lives in Milton, Delaware. Jill lives in Delaware. We have two people that are watching at this moment that live in Delaware and would have never thought.
I apologize.
Would have never thought.
All right. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Delawareites. Delawareans.
Newcastle, Delaware.
What do we think it is?
Yeah,
Newcastle. Delawares? No way.
No, I was joking.
Delawareans?
Yeah, probably. Adam H. Good news. Horrible neighbors are moving. That's always good.
Yeah, I saw good news from. I want to give some love to Jeff, to our guy Jeff. He had a good news here, serious good news, but a real good news here. It says good news. Girlfriend admitting herself into a short-term rehab for the abuse from her ex that caused her to start drinking. Very proud of her. We're very proud of her too, Jeff. Very happy for you and for her. So that is fantastic news on a Friday. Wishing you all the best and wishing her all the best with that process. So
absolutely
big good news there.
Ditto. Yeah.
All right. What do you got? Good news?
No, you will go first. Good news.
Yeah, sure. I got good news. I've got one fantasy football draft tomorrow. Excited for fantasy football draft. Hey, I like it for a minute. It's fun until like week 3.
My life has been the last year I played fantasy football was 2019.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I am like too busy for fantasy football this football season. I can't, but like I'm gonna try anyway.
You'll draft.
I'm gonna go to the draft, be like, hey, I'm into this, and then not pay attention probably because too busy. Good news, got a nice haircut. Got
We've
nice
seen
haircut.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just letting everybody know. I feel good today. Good news. One of my best friends from college that I used to live with is coming into town. So, yep, he's back in town. I'm gonna spend some time with him this weekend before the Titans game. So, yep, I'm pumped. It's good weekend.
My good news, Watermelon Festival. Nashville. Okay. Nashville down there at the farmers market. So I'm gonna hit up Watermelon. Heard of that. Yeah, me either, but I'm gonna go because I love all things watermelon. So it's gonna be nice. It's not gonna be scorching hot. So I'm gonna do a Saturday Watermelon Festival at the farmers market. How about that for married?
Nice, dude. Can I give a little impromptu?
I'm honestly really excited about it. Like they're gonna have they have so many different things of like treats and snacks and foods that are made with watermelon. And I'm like, yep, absolutely, take that. Yes,
not a watermelon guy.
No, oh man,
no. I had watermelon for the first time like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And didn't really like it, to be honest. But I'm not going to offend watermelon fans in the chat. So I'm going to move on. Great. Can I do a little impromptu throwing shade here? Because I got something that's agitating me. And I don't get to throw shade all that often. Yeah, I'm throwing shade to people who go to trivia at bars that do like pop-up trivia.
Yeah.
And 1, Google the answers. Or 2, play on a team with like 9 people on it. Like, no shit, you won the can I say that on here? I'm sorry. Like, you won the gift card. Like, for like you won the $20 gift card. Like, you have 9 people on your team. Like, somebody's gonna come up with the answer. Congrats, you get $250 each. Like, it drove me nuts. I'm sitting there and like, also, if you're cheering because your team got like a random answer right in like the middle of the trivia round, prison. Like, jail them up. So that's my impromptu throwing shade. I went to
cheer. You can cheer, like if you pulled something out of your ass. Winning,
but like it'd be like, in 11th place, we've got the Turnpikes, and then wow, big scream from the comment. You're in 11th, and like they get one answer right, and they have to brag. Let everybody in the bar know we got that answer correct. Chill, like.
Okay, all right. I like trivia nights. I wish I did more of them. They're fun.
I love
But yeah,
trivia nights as well, but I always get
yeah.
mad because I'm playing on my little team of 3 in the corner, and we're going against like
What's
the
your max trivia table? I mean,
Monstars.
I think 8's fair because that's like, it's like
That's too
4,
many, man. Like, I think
6.
like
What's your
don't
cutoff?
like 5. Like I can
5?
I mean, it's just like I don't know. I feel like it's not that challenging if you've got like a whole group of people and everybody's going to be able to like pull a different thing. Like if everybody has their little niche and it's like, yeah, you're going to have your bases covered. It's like if one of the 6 of us has seen this
I
television
think
show before,
6.
like
I think 6 is fine because you can fit 6 people at most normal
I
restaurant tables.
Shat's kind of with me 4 to 5. It's like 4 is totally cool. 5 is I'm like, all right, that's fine. But like when you get to 6, I'm like, that's a big group. That's too big.
So if you're 8, you should split the 2 teams.
Yes, why not? 2 teams of 4 have a little friendly competition going on within the competition.
Okay.
Definitely. I get passionate.
I think 6 is fine. I think 6 is probably the top.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, agree to disagree.
It sounds like somebody got whooped at trivia and is a little bit sour about it recently.
Did not get whooped. I finished middle of the pack, but I was basically on a team of 2 because I was on a team of 3, and one of us was not exactly contributing to the squad at all. So, so shade on my buddy as well.
It sounds like also shade on you for bad recruiting.
Yeah. Hey, I just like to go have fun with my friends.
He was just there for morale. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's it for us. Sam's 53-man roster article out later today on A2ZSports.com. Hope you guys have a great start to your weekend. Buck going down to New Orleans there for Titans preseason game 3. So we'll have content from there as well as throughout the weekend more. And we'll see you guys Monday where we'll really get to do it because cut down day is Tuesday. So we'll see you guys later. Have a great start to your weekend. Talk to you. Appreciate it as always.